In many countries with old houses, there are various rituals that you could perform to get the scare of your life, or perhaps seek greater rewards. In this case, if you're reading this story, you'll most likely be after treasures beyond comprehension. In which case, I can most certainly help you in that regard. But it will require one thing. A cost, if you will. The cost? Your life, or perhaps even your sanity, or any life of people that you particularly hate. Really, it's your choice. You can be the bad person in the end, or the good person. Or neither. The rewards you're going to be in for are riches, immortality, anything you could dream of, really. The sky is the limit when it comes to these things. Infinite possibilities, good and bad. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have an old house, as stated. The reason why is because most beings that are even remotely evil or powerful exist in these locations. The next thing I cannot specify enough is obviously your safety. If you are going to do this, you either want a protective barrier around you and whatever devilish entities you're dealing with, or you could risk it, go in unprotected, and possibly come out the other end as a spirit yourself. Not one that can roam freely, however. I mean one that is perhaps forever trapped in the same house, rotting away, just like your body that you'll probably have a very good glimpse of around the manor itself, or home in question. So if you do not wish to die a most horrible fate, and scary one, I would recommend making a barrier. Salt is something that often wards off these entities, amongst other things. So, getting into the main parts of the ritual and the equipment you'll need, the first thing that I must specify is a room that is in complete darkness. One that also has a pretty good escape route as well, in case things go wrong. One thing I cannot specify enough, however, is basements. Don't do it in basements. The reason why? Well, think of it like this. The closer you are to the underworld, the more dangerous spirits you'll be in contact with. Basements in particular, depending on how old they are, can have a certain effect on spirits. All you would need to die once a horrible death would be to just go down there once, perform the ritual, with or even without protection, and then risk seeing a darker shadow than possible form in the room that you're in, aka the basement, and watch as it slowly forms into a horrific mass, going closer and closer towards you. If you're lucky, you may be found later in the burnt down remnants of the house as ashes. If not, then just assume that hell is 10 times more hotter than the point of even conceding or making ashes. Yeah, the point being, you'd be dead 10 times over. So, with that subtle warning out the way, I'll say it once more. Don't do this in a basement. It is a death wish. Nevertheless, once you've found your relatively dark, empty room, whether it be a living room or attic, something of the sort, set down the equipment you'll need. 5 candles, specifically white ones because of their purity. Light the 5 candles and make sure they're in a circle, with a bound of salt in between. Once you've done that, you'll need a book of some kind, a diary even. You want to write in the last page of the book, "My Soul." Once you've done that, Put the book with yourself in the circle. This represents your soul and what you are bargaining with, essentially. Now, it's worth me saying this in case some of you just so happen to not know. Keep an eye on that book. If one candle should go out, if a single grain of salt is moved, something could perhaps reach into the circle, grab the book, and you'd probably not want to know what happens next. After that, you just have to play the waiting game. Wait until the witching hour, perhaps 3 a.m., and everything should pretty much then go well. I will, however, give you this much advice. There is a backing out point, but there's only one, and it's while you're playing the waiting game. While you are waiting, there is a set period of things that you can do. You could place a bunch of crucifixes around the house to say I'm not interested anymore and just leave the area, or you could wait and actually go along with the ritual. I do advise eating and getting snacks or even getting a drink. You don't want to die a rather plain and embarrassing death while playing this game, would you? And even then, if the game is still active while you are dead, well, there's no saying what could happen. But I could only imagine it would be terrible. So, best to probably end the game otherwise. Even so, once you've waited until 3 a.m., the real game begins, and the horrors too. It is at this point that I'll give you some advice if things go a little bit off plan, or completely off the rails, even. If any door should open for any particular reason, and you know you are alone, then run. Best case scenario, it could be a robber. Worst case scenario, it could be something else. I shouldn't need to explain that. If any cold air starts to seep in through the room that you're in, making you feel a sudden chill, vacate the area. Chances are, it's either infested with the cold of many spirits, or you're slowly being possessed. And for the final piece of advice, never bring a phone with you. Spirits, after possessing the host, having access to their phone, can proceed to write stories, particular stories about rituals and how to do them. Sound familiar? If so, I can assure you I'm not possessed. Not that you would know that, but like I said, I can assure you I'm perfectly fine. Even so, do not really trust every article. Hell, don't trust mine. That's a bit of honesty, if you're reluctant to even do this. Which you should be. Even so, getting back to it, they can proceed to write false posts, essentially making you do the wrong thing to give up your soul to them. Even so, after that, it's pretty much fair game. All you have to do, present your soul or whatever you decide to give up, and in which case, the trade will be in progress. Like I said, make sure you're looking out for the things that shouldn't be happening as well. Evacuate the area if you need to, and you should be fine. After that point, you should then have all your riches and live happily ever after. But there is something else I may have left out. Don't return to the exact same location. Move houses if you have to. Just make sure that you're not the person within that house, because they don't have access to you. Don't worry, they cannot harm anyone else that is in the house, because they have no ties to them. just you. Oh, and finally, never use candles again. Cannot specify that enough. Candles, at this point, or the ones you used, are cursed objects tied to them. The journal, in which case, may also be tied to them, but that's in their possession now anyway because you bargained with it. But if it should show up in your home, perhaps it wants other forms of payment.